Hi everybody, this is the host, aka Host 1.
And the co-host, aka Host 2 here. Just a few quick words before we jump into the episode.
If you're a new listener, here's how the show works. We typically will spend about 5% of the episode at the beginning and the end talking about a motivational related topic, and then the other 95% of the episode is a ton of comedy in between.
We'd appreciate it if you could please like, subscribe, and share the show with other people. Feel free to leave us a comment wherever you're listening or send an email to facetodaypodcast@gmail.com.
Now, back to the episode. Hey everyone, how's it going today? This is Host 1.
Hey everybody, this is Host 2, and we hope you enjoy the content we're about to bring.
This is another episode of the Face the Day podcast, and we are proud and happy to be back with all of our listeners. We know we have listeners ranging from Australia to China to the islands in the middle of the oceans to England to Africa to Canada to South America to the US to the Caribbeans. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in the middle of the ocean and the water. We are happy you are listening today.
We hope you are in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of nowhere, and let our voices be the one thing that you hear today, and let us bring you a little bit of hope.
Let us guide you, and that is leading into the title of this episode, which is called Feel the Fear and Face It. And not to get too much into, mental health and combating different anxieties and whatnot, but the reason for the title is just because with the theme of the Face the Day podcast, we felt it's important to kind of, make sure our listeners know that Host 1 and Host 2, we deal with stuff ourselves, and it's just yes. Common knowledge that most people are dealing with something on a day-to-day basis, and you really need to feel the fears and the worries and the anxieties and just face them and manage your life and move forward. And that is the name. Why it is the name of this episode.
Absolutely. And to go along with the broader theme of our entire show, which is Face the Day, facing the fear feel the fear and face it, kind of goes hand in hand with that theme. And we hope some of the content we bring you is going to be relevant, and some of it's going to be off the cuff and more for comedy's sake. But we hope you enjoy it.
Now, to my co-host here. Leading into the first question, and if you've listened to the podcast before, you know how this works. We ask questions and we discuss different topics, and we take things from there. And we're just going to jump right into it with the first one. My question to you, co-host, is when actors and actresses who are in couples, actual like relationships, when they're at home together, do they start acting by accident? And do they, does that happen a lot? What do you think?
Wow, it's a great question. It reminds me of Arrested Development and Tobias Funke, who would say, I am an actor. But I think the question is, how dedicated are they? I recently saw a commercial with Scarlett Johansson and her husband, Colin from SNL, and they were rehearsing at home. It almost seemed like they were acting at home. I'm not sure. What do you think, co-host?
Speaking, Mr. Jost, Mr. Colin, man, that guy had a hard upbringing. Let me tell you, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and going to private schools his whole life, and getting handed a job, and just becoming the host of a SNL weekend update. Like, man, did he have to battle for that career that he's got? And props to him for being with Scarlett Johansson. But that's a rant for a different day and a different story. But anyhow, I think that actors and actress couples, when they're home, they might accidentally start acting. But I think that one of them is probably going to be the annoying one and try to force it on the other person, trying to get them to read script lines with them and whatnot. But, it really just depends on the people. And if I were to guess, I would say someone like Zoe Saldana, if that's even how you pronounce her name. She's probably like that at home. But someone like, Kevin Dillon might not be.
Yes, agreed. And I would think that would be, if you were married to someone like that or with someone, that might be pretty annoying after a while, because you don't know if you're getting the real person or the actor.
Right. And I think it really depends on the race and the the ethnicity of the person as well, because there's different societal norms depending on what you're used to from the home life.
Yes.
And it might be because of different ingredients you're putting in your foods and how that makes you act and think at home when you're not on set. You might have different call sheets and call times, but that really can play into this.
Absolutely. And you are more of the expert on the nationalities than I am, and I'm going to go with that answer.
All right. Yeah, now moving on to the next topic in question. For my co-host, we don't get too political in the show, and we don't really feel that's important or necessary because our listeners around the globe have all different types of views and feel certain things are important and some things aren't. We don't need to get into all that, and we don't really care. However, my next question is about the current president of the United States. His name is Joseph Biden, and I think his middle name is Ronan. Or it might be Robin.
Robinette.
Robin.
Robinin.
Robinette.
Robinin. Okay.
My question for you, co-host, is why is it that every time he starts a reply, a response, or a sentence, it is with the word look?
Look.
Going forward, we have a dilemma with this country and what we need to do. Look. Let me tell you something. Look. If we're going to get to this point, then we're going to have to do X, Y. Look.
Yes.
I think you get my point, co-host.
Get the point. Yes, and it's a great point.
The guy is 85 years old, and he says the word look before he starts any type of sentence. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a great question, and I have two different views on it. One, you could say that, Joe is a visual learner, right? So he's a visual guy, so he says look. He wants you to look because he sees everything. That's his first and foremost sense. He likes to look at things. Or it's more of a habit. What's it called? Like it's something like a snap to get his brain moving. Okay, now it's time to answer the question. This is my trigger saying, look, go and give the answer. What do you think?
What I think, and what's been pretty clear, is that he has notes in front of him all the time telling him what to do, where to go, what place to step. And it simply might just be that his aides tell him to start every sentence with the word look, because it makes him sound smarter, shall we say? That he's telling everyone to look into what he's saying.
Look into what he's saying. Yeah, he's trying to relate to the average person too. Maybe he's trying to be real in his mind. He thinks he's being real with the average American, saying, look, I'm just like you. Look, I'm being real.
Yeah, and he wants people to pay attention to what he's saying. So he's trying to tell them to look at what I'm saying.
Yes,
and that's really. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and to be honest, there are people that have worse, habits of manners of speech, but he certainly does say look a lot.
And that leads into our next topic of people having habits of saying the same thing and what they say. But if you listen closely to most tech CEOs and tech leaders, when they're in interviews or they're responding to things, they start every single response with so. So if you ask a question, for example, I just did it. I personally just did it by accident. I didn't mean to, but you're listening, you're watching an interview, and the interviewee goes something like, how do you get to this level, and why did you enter this industry? Why are you doing X, Y, Z? And 9 out of 10 times, the tech CEO or leader will start the answer with so. So we did this because we wanted to achieve these metrics. So if you look at the answer, the reason for that is because so here my team Why do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Another good question, and I think it's a bit of a nerdy thing for sure. It's like they want to pretend like they have the answers to everything, right? So if they pretend like they're stumped, in their minds, these nerdy guys will think they'll look bad. So they say, so I have an answer for this. So here's how I see it. And so is like the way they preface it is like, oh, I've got it all figured out.
I also find it to be a little condescending and, I'm better than you type.
Yes.
Because it's
exactly.
It's like every single answer they're coming out with or responding with is like is deep from inside of them or so like well thought out. Like, so I've been thinking of this for a while, and here's why I did this. Most of the times, these people are very privileged. They're in leadership positions and started companies because they had tremendous access to money that most people don't have. They grew up in private schools. They went to Harvard, Yale, their parents put money down for them to go there. Like, these people are not deep thinking
Absolutely.
They are getting by because of how they were brought up. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, but the majority of them are.
Exactly, trust fund kids, and I do agree that there is an aura of moral superiority with them starting it out saying so. It's almost like, so I'm better than you, and I'm going to give you this answer. It's kind of like adversarial in a kind of a strange way to start a conversation or to give an answer saying so. It's like, so I don't care if you disagree or you don't agree with me, but so this is my answer, and you're going to take it. So well said, co-host.
Now, for the next question, co-host, it has to do with our global mentality, and we're going to go to the country of the United Kingdom, Britain, and I don't know, and I'm wondering if you know, as my co-host, why are so many British people named Hugh?
Hugh? Or
Hugh. Huge.
I think the G is silent.
Hugh.
Like Hugh Grant.
Like Hugh Grant, yeah.
Or Hugh Jackman.
Can you explain that one to me?
Well, it's a very common British name. You really don't meet a lot of Hughes from America.
Is it the same thing as, British people like wondering why so many people are named Mike or Matt or Chris here?
That's good. Yes, that's a good point. Although I do think there are some Matthews and some Christophers that are from the UK.
That was my next point I was getting to, is that those names I just mentioned are common around the world, but Hugh is so connected to Britain. Why are so many people named that?
That's a good question. Maybe it has something to do with.
Doesn't it infuriate you a little bit?
Well, maybe it's a royalty, a British ancestry thing.
I have a problem with countries and families naming their new children with the most common names, and then it's one thing if you deeply, deeply love that name and it's it has a meaning in your life, but it's why, if you don't have that, why would you name your kid just the most common name? And there's millions of other people with the same name. Why?
Agree. Well, you know what? We are both in the.
If you were in Britain, would you name your kid Hugh?
No, I'd name my kid George. Actually, I don't know about that. What is the best English name that you can think of? There are some good ones that are unique.
Piers.
Okay.
Jude Law.
Great, excellent.
Clive
another one. Wow.
I'm just thinking of actors and actresses that are that are from Britain.
Yeah, Benedict.
There
are some good ones. Well, here, in the South, we got guys like Hunter and that type of vibe. So
yep, Hunter. We got. I once knew a guy named Texas.
His
name was Texas, and he was from Texas.
Oh my God.
Now, co-host, next question for you. People are in, out of the dating game. They go through different phases in their life where they're dating, and it can be, it can be a man dating a woman. It can be a woman dating a man. Like going back to the topic of politics and whatnot. My co-host and I are accepting of all people. Let's be very clear about that, and we really, really mean that. We love people that. No matter what your beliefs are or what you want or what you care about, we respect you.
Yes.
This question, though, applies to dating and a man and a woman when they're dating. And my question to you is, what is your opinion on when a date is going on and the bill comes at the end, and it's with a man and a woman dating, and the girl does that little fake reach to her purse to act like she wants to contribute to the bill, but she has no interest in doing that. What is your thought on that?
Great question.
From the man's perspective.
From the man's perspective, obviously women, I think, across the board expect the man to pay for the date, even if it's a second date, and that's totally fine. It's not a big deal for us. But those same women, they want to enforce this type of double standard, and then they want to kind of expect, the man to pay, but yet all these other norms they want to get, be done with. So it's like, there's chivalry and there's these norms that take place at the end of this date that they love, but they want total equal rights. So I'm not sure where that kind of, reconciles.
I once thought I saw a Reddit, a subreddit on that had the title of "Reach for the Purse," because it's just all about men making fun of it and then women talking about how they all do it, and it's it's kind of like people don't talk about it much in society, but we all know it happens, and it happens way too frequently.
Yes.
And you just hate, if one of the women that's doing this is also at the same time preaching about pay equality and, salary transparencies,
yes.
You would hate to see her doing something like that on a date. And by the way, we are not saying that all women are doing this, but we just want it to be an even playing field for all genders and races. And it's just an interesting topic that isn't discussed much, and we want to bring it up.
It is. And I feel like, most women don't mind paying. I went on a date a few weeks ago, and I forgot my card. And so she was very nice and offered up her card. And, of course, I Venmo'd her the bill. But the thing is, would she...
How did that go when you Venmo'd her the bill?
It was a little strange, but it worked out. She was very appreciative, very grateful. But...
Did she pay you?
Well, she paid the bill, because I didn't have my card, so she had to pay. She had to cover me the entire $120 bill, and then while we were sitting there, I Venmo'd her $120. Now, those type of girls, though, they may not see, as a guy, you might not get a second date if she thinks you're cheap. So there is a little bit of societal pressure in that way.
There is societal pressure, but at the same time, and for all of our female listeners out there, you might be chuckling on the inside right now, listening to this and thinking like, oh, like I have my thoughts on this and blah blah blah. But really, my question to you, co-host, is: can you, as a man, and this might be turning into more of like a alpha male girl seduction type podcast all of a sudden. That's not even our approach, but if you're the topic of girls paying versus guys paying is we could have a whole episode about this, honestly.
Absolutely,
but
we could. I
think my question for you is: do girls actually expect the man to pay? And if as the man, when the bill comes and just the topic of paying, if you kind of flip it on them and you're confident around like why the man shouldn't pay or why it should be right down the line, do you think is actually better for the man's situation and the girl is respecting you more?
You know what? That's a great point. I think it's doable. I think it's possible. We should have a co-host that's a woman on here, or a guest host, and maybe she can answer, because in the moment, someone can get on here and a woman can say what she thinks, and same with a guy. But when you're in that moment, you're on a date, and the bill comes, it's who knows? It's kind of a toss up.
We'll leave this for another episode. We are just sneak preview. We do have plans to get a different co-host coming up in future episodes. Guest host. The next one will be a female. And we know who it's going to be. We're not going to reveal her name, but we can discuss this next time.
We also have a male guest host, celebrity host, that's on a bigger podcast.
Yes, he's from a bigger podcast, from the financial world. We're not going to reveal any other info about it, but when he makes his presence here, he will reveal himself how he would like to portray himself.
Absolutely,
and we respect that.
Yes, and we think you will all love him. He's a great guy, and he's got a very successful podcast, and
yes,
can bring a lot of good knowledge to the table.
And now, on the topic of tables, it's funny you ended with that. Is that clearly we're dealing with some pretty intense inflation right now. By the way, this podcast, we're recording this on July 9th, 2022. Interesting time in the U.S., which is where we're recording this from. We don't reveal much about ourselves, but we will tell you that we're recording this in the U.S.
Yes, somewhere in the U.S.
Somewhere in the U.S.
and continental.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that inflation is at an all-time high right now. We're at war. There's just constant issues going on, and it really has relayed over into, especially when you go out. You go out to eat. I feel like the service at these restaurants has gotten a lot worse. Obviously, for the fanciest and the most expensive places, that might not be the case. But for the majority of the restaurants, I feel like the service has gone downhill, and it's becoming an issue. And what's your opinion on how you feel like masks and wearing masks has contributed to this? The service going downhill.
Oh,
you can't hear what they're saying.
Yes.
Everyone has kind of like a guard up against them because, like, the mask, and it creates this. You're just going to this restaurant, you want it to be welcoming and inviting, and the masks make it very standoffish and very.
They do.
Do you think it's contributed to it at all?
I think it has. I think when it's hard to hear someone with a mask on, especially when they're standing above you, you're sitting down at a table. I think it gives them a kind of a barrier to hide behind. With a very good points about the masks. And thankfully, we've been without masks in our area for a little while, co-host, but the effects are still lingering. It's
interesting because in our last, just to be fully transparent, we actually, we had some issues in terms of our development and our, just logistically. But the last episode we recorded, co-host, was about a year ago.
Wow.
And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because when it comes to the topics of masks and COVID, we were at a pretty different stage a year ago. And It's interesting now. I feel like, just in my opinion, I'm ready to just move on and I don't care about discussing masks anymore. Where a year ago I was like infuriated by it. I was like, why is everyone wearing masks? Like, we go to get service and everyone's wearing a damn mask. I can't hear.
Yes.
Like you don't know what their teeth look like. They can be ugly as sin.
Yes.
But, now I don't. I just wish to move on. And
yes. Yeah.
It's interesting what a year can bring your mind.
Yes, it's I say a lot can happen in a day, in a week, and in a year. My Lord, and you're right. I mean, who would this time? July 21, we would still have another 9 months of masks where we are. So, who knew? Who knew?
Long live the mask mandate discussion.
Yes,
but we will get to that another time.
Yes.
And my next question for you is, what is your opinion on elevator talkers? This is just like, it talk about societal observations, but this is something that many people don't discuss. But I feel like you're either an elevator talker or you're not. And an elevator talker, for the record, is someone, you get out of a small little elevator. And it obviously has to be more than just you and the person you're with. But elevator talkers always feel the need to make a little conversation amongst themselves while they're on the elevator, almost as if they're, it's being that close to people and having it be crystal clear silent bothers them. Are you an elevator talker? And when you're on an elevator with them, how does it feel?
Oh, I'm not an elevator talker, and I find it to be extremely annoying when somebody is on an elevator talker. Now, you're talking about like another couple or another group that's talking amongst themselves, not to you.
I think it's because people get very uncomfortable with the silence that exists on elevators and how close you are to other people.
Yes.
And a lot of people will feel the need, whether they even mean to do it or not, but they will just start making small talk.
Yes.
Not necessarily with the other people on the elevator who they don't know, but with the people that, the other person there, if they're with someone else.
Yes.
And that happens more than you realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It could be like a Seinfeld or a Curb episode about the elevator talkers, because it's one thing, if they know if you're in a high rise and you're getting off at a different floor, then okay. But sometimes you get elevator talkers that get off at the same floor as you, or they start talking to you directly, and then you all have to get off at the same floor. Then that could be awkward.
An invasion of privacy and space, and that leads to my next question about elevators, which is, one of my biggest pet peeves, and I really, really mean this, is people about to get in an elevator that do not give it a few seconds to make sure that others are getting off before that.
Yes.
I cannot stand seeing someone, when the elevator doors open, immediately bursting in, and then they end up walking directly into someone getting off.
Absolutely.
Give it a few seconds.
You know what? I am guilty of that sometimes. It does require self-awareness. It does require patience, but I agree. People are jumping on the elevator. But you know what? Those people that do that are getting karma sometimes, because if they're trying to hop into an elevator that's full, they're literally going to get knocked back by all the people rushing out of the elevator. So they'll get it's almost like instant karma.
People need to get on and off elevators quickly. And that's the problem, is that sometimes you get people that are on the elevator that the door opens and they have to get off, but they're not getting off quickly enough.
Yes.
You have to respect the elevator, and you have to get on and off quickly. And it's just a problem that I know it's a matter of seconds, but seconds add up.
The seconds add up. Maybe in high school they should teach everyone a class called elevator etiquette.
What if you live in a building that has elevators, and what if you work in a building that has elevators? You're spending a lot of your life in this scenario.
You really are.
You really are.
People don't know how to act
6 times a day.
Yep. It would be it would be, infuriating.
Infuriating. And now leading into the next question, co-host, and our listeners, if you've been listening long enough, you realize that not everything is connected. Not everything makes perfect sense in the show, but we dish it and we ask the questions that people want to know. So my next question to you is, why did croutons never become a snack food? And why are they only for the salad? Can you explain that to me? We could deeply research the topic of croutons and look into it more, but like the marketers around croutons, why would you not try to get it to be more of a snack food? And why is it only associated with salads?
That's a great question. There is a snack that I can't think of the name of now that has like a similar type of cracker with a green cracker in there as well.
But it's like it's not crouton. Croutons are so heavily associated with salads. But if you think about it, they're just little bread crackers.
Yeah.
And they could easily be marketed as a snack food.
I don't have an answer. They are wheat, they are pure carbs. It could be a health reason, but they could be very successful as a snack food.
As we structure this podcast and as we grow it, this could be a time where we would love our listeners' input and the feedback.
Send us comments.
You could help us answer some of these questions because we might sound like we're like this is like half comedy, this is half whatever. But a lot of our questions are actually like actual real questions. If you think about it,
that we have,
that we're not just pulling out our ass. Like people have these questions, and we would love to hear your opinions on them. So
absolutely,
we'll be giving you ways to get in touch with us, but we just wanted to point that out. And now, jumping from the topic of croutons to talk about how we jump around and ask the questions here, but getting a little deeper, co-host, do you think the thumbs up emoji, does it do more harm than good?
Wow. You know what? I think people carry their own emotional baggage with certain emojis. And sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be negative. Go ahead.
It's the reason I want to give you a second to think here, but like just to clarify, it's like the reason I'm asking is because the thumbs up and the like symbol is so synonymous with like, happiness and love and, I this is great. But is it the concept of it and the existence of it, is it actually not good? And is it doing more harm than good?
No, I don't think so. I think that when you like a text and it gives you the blue one on the certain text, I think that's not as good as actually sending a real thumbs up emoji. I don't think so.
I think it could have a more detrimental effect for the person who's receiving it. That's kind of where I was getting to is, it's kind of harmless. Someone sees a post or a video and they give a little thumbs up. Who cares? They probably aren't even thinking that much about it. But the people that receive it, they receive enough of them and they start to get validation that, what I'm putting out there, people like and love. And then, you start putting out future stuff and they might not get any or many likes and it's like, that type of thinking is what I'm getting to. It might be a question that we can, touch back on, but
we should circle back. No, but I think I think the emoji exploration and analysis can be very valuable for a lot of people. I will say that, you don't want to oversaturate the emojis, right? If you're sending 1 million thumbs up, then for sure. But every once in a while, a thumbs up, I don't think it's like, it could be sarcastic, but I don't think so.
Yeah, and then getting into our next question here is I've actually been alerted recently that there's a lot of people who think Morgan Freeman is fake and not a real person. What is your thought on that?
Well, I would have to hear more about this theory because, as you know, I'm very big into the theories and conspiratorial ideas, but how would that be possible?
I don't know, but, we obviously don't, we're not that connected with the celebrities and the famous people in this world, and we both don't have any proof that he exists.
We don't. We've never seen him.
It's just a question that maybe one of our listeners out there has actually met him, but even if you met him, was it really him? We need to find someone who actually knows Morgan and can give us validation. And I think that's something that once we get bigger, we can maybe find people that actually know the answer.
You know what? And now that I think about all the movies he's in, he's always got like a ghost type of character in a lot of his movies, or like a mythical character. He's also, you never see any like fan pictures with him in Hollywood.
Never.
Never.
He's only in the movies.
Is he?
You realize that?
Yeah.
You know him from the movies, and you've probably seen him at award shows, sitting there like
That's the only
when,
time.
when the camera goes on. He does a little clap and a smile, but other than that, like
He might not.
I'm sure you've seen interviews or whatnot but you've never seen him in real life.
He could be a CGI creation.
And in terms of his age and his look, I feel like he has looked the same for 40 years now.
40 years, 50 years, yeah.
What did he look like when he was younger?
You remember in Bruce Almighty, he was God?
Yes.
He actually was God. Wow.
This man is interesting, and once this podcast develops more and we have more production budgeting, we're gonna have video around this, and we'll be able to like put a picture on the screen of like what Morgan Freeman looked like when he was younger, and we're just gonna have a lot more. But
we will.
Anyways, this leads into our next question, and my question to you is, what do people who work in the industry of rocket science, who are rocket scientists, when they're referring to something of not being up to the standard of rocket science, what do they say in place of that?
Of rocket science.
And what I'm meaning here is like, you're trying to say something isn't difficult to understand or isn't confusing, and most people are like, it's not rocket science. What do people that are actually rocket scientists say in place of that?
What do they say? That's a great question.
Well, that's why we're here.
Well,
we ask the
questions that we hope to find the answers
Yes.
for. Well, all I can think of is Bill Nye, but he's not a rocket scientist.
The science guy.
The science guy. I know you have some thoughts
We've
about
discussed
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye the Science Guy. But he had one of the biggest scams of the 1990s and the early 2000s. This man was... I don't know much about him, so I'm not going to say he wasn't smart, but, I think he was gaming the system harder than anyone has in the past. He was Bill Nye the Science Guy, and he portrayed himself as a scientific genius.
He did.
And we bought it.
We bought it.
And we had
hook,
to.
Hook, line, and sinker.
This man is a... Bill Nye, if you're listening to this, one day we will meet, and I would love to just give you £1. Because you played the game and the system perfectly.
Perfectly.
Sir. Perfectly,
he
sir.
Did. He did.
And however much money you made and you're living on currently,
kudos.
Respect.
You scammed all of us, Bill. You got away with it. We hope, you feel good about yourself. And
But, sir, my co-host, can you please... If you have to give an answer,
yes.
This show is all about, you might not have the right answer, but you're going to give an answer, which leads into actually, not to get off topic, but the concept of facing your fear and face the day it really actually, and I mean this, it applies to what I just said, is like, you might not have the perfect day. You might not have the perfect answer. You might not have the perfect response, but you're still going to do it anyways. It's not all about perfection. It's not all about feeling certain all the time. It's about living your life and not having that type of stuff get in the way.
Absolutely.
And you can't let, not every day doesn't need to be perfect for you. You just need to face it.
Yes.
And you need to live your life.
Yes.
And I know that ties into like the rocket science answer, where it's like, you might not have the perfect answer right now, but you have an answer.
Yes. And I guess... we did want to riff a little bit here at the end about our personal meaning to the title and the theme of the show about feeling the fear and face it, and going back to what you were saying about trying to be perfect all the time. That's just not feasible. It's just not realistic. And something that I heard recently is that things in life are not always smooth. Me personally, I always want to do things really smoothly, but when you go after the things you really want, it's not going to be smooth. You can't expect to be smooth and perfect. Like, that's not how you get the things you want, right? No. And that's just, I think that's something that I've come to realize.
And we're all dealing with different things, and it's like, you're inside your head all day, so you're thinking certain people are thinking certain things, but think about it, they're people as well, and they're also thinking that you're thinking certain things.
Of course, yes.
Which is crazy. So everyone is just worried about everyone else, when at the same time they're all worried about everyone else.
Yeah. And you know what I
Which
think?
is hilarious, because like, if everyone just realized that, they would be like less, insecure and less like worried about everything. They would just be like, I'm just gonna fucking live.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's what we've both realized as we've gotten older. You know, you hit your 30s, you start to realize that like everyone is so preoccupied with themselves.
Yep.
No, literally nobody gives a shit what you're doing, and it's actually liberating because you're like, wow, nobody cares what I'm actually doing, and you look around and it's true, no one actually cares.
And if they see you enjoying your life, and you know. Even if you're faking it, like if they see you just you know, confident and having a good time, they're going to respect that, and they're going to be and they'll be happy about it because they'll be like, and that's the crazy thing about it is that like you know everyone's kind of stuck in their own minds, and
absolutely.
If we could all just somehow get to the point of realizing that, I think we would make a lot of progress.
We make a lot of progress, and you know it's something that I remembered last night. I read a long time ago online. One of the great sage bloggers. You know, we talked about this idea of irrational self-confidence. And like you said, people respect confidence. And you know what? If you are confident to the point where it doesn't really make sense, where it's irrational, that's okay. People, if you come across the right way, people will be fine with that. And like you said, you got to fake it till you make it sometimes. But you do what you got to do, you know. And at the end of the day, that is what it is.
Absolutely. And then I think did you want to answer the question about rocket science, co-host?
Yeah. Can you rephrase it one more time for us?
The question is simply just what do people that are actual rocket scientists, what do they say when they're talking about something that's difficult? You know, if they're going to say that's not rocket science to understand that, what do they say in place of that?
So you're talking about an actual rocket scientist.
What do rocket scientists think are a step above them?
See, you're stumping me with a question, which is why I took the long way around it. I mean, rocket scientists are genius.
We can circle back.
Yeah, because this is very funny.
I don't even know if I have an answer. I don't think many people do because they're so used to saying it's not rocket science. But
rocket scientists
there's so many rocket scientists out there.
But they're not the ones.
There has to be someone above them. Where they say it's not being the president. You know,
yes.
It's that type of you don't know, and that could be another future guest we get on here. We get a rocket scientist.
Let's get a rocket
scientist on the show and ask them
because rocket scientists would be able to explain it in simple terms, so they might not use that phrase.
Let's get a rocket scientist in a future episode.
Yes,
we'll take
let's
it from
do
there.
it.
And then co-host, one of the actually things we want to stand by with the show is not making the episodes too long. So we're getting kind of over our time frame here, and we want to wrap this up. We do have a lot of questions to ask, but we're going to have another episode soon. So we're gonna end with this question here, and that is, a lot of people are working from home these days. Working remotely is extremely common, and we all use Google Hangouts. We all use Zoom. And my question to you is, how funny is the concept of the fact that you have no idea the person that you are video conferencing with on any of these platforms, you have no idea how tall they are.
Wow.
And you're constantly, they could even be at a standing desk, but most of the time they're sitting down, but that doesn't matter. You have no idea how tall these people are. What's your thinking around that? And do you think that most people are actually, considering how crazy the concept of this is?
Well, you're talking about the crazy concept of Zoom itself and video conferencing, and
just the concept of how funny it is that you don't know how, obviously not being in person with people at the office is like going to change societal norms. That's a given. We all understand that.
Yes.
But the number one thing when it comes to video conferencing with someone that you don't know is how tall they are.
Yeah, you don't. It's
tell me something. Tell me something that you don't know more than that.
It's true. Yeah, I've never even considered it. You don't literally know, man or woman, you have no idea how tall they are.
When you meet someone in person,
they could be 5.
You know how tall they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't even think twice about it, but you at least can see how big they are.
Yes.
When you're video conferencing with them, you have no fucking idea.
Yes. They could stand up out of their chair and be out of the screen. They could be 7 feet tall.
Doesn't matter if there's a standing desk, sitting desk, you still just have no idea.
You have no idea. And I think that lends to itself to the whole idea of Zoom, and that there's so much to be said about face-to-face human interaction, that there's so many unknowns about the Zoom calls.
I think that is one of the most overlooked things of the whole remote working and video conferencing society we live in, is that someone who is 4'11", and trust me, we always keep going back to we respect people everyone, and we love everyone, but
Yes.
someone who is 4'11" in the real world is probably going to have more challenges than someone who's 6'11" when it comes to leadership and just
Yes.
getting respect from everyone. But when it comes to Zoom and Google Meet and all these video conferencing platforms, there's no difference.
There's no difference.
Someone could be CEO of a company and be
Well-
4'11", and you would have no idea.
Absolutely. So is that a good? So it sort of levels the playing field. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think I've thought about this a lot, and I think it really does level the playing field. And I think it's really leveling the playing field for not only when it comes to height, but more so for like introverts versus extroverts.
Yes.
And just it's very interesting concept. There's constantly so much discussion and people talking about work from home versus hybrid versus in office,
yes.
and it's like
Never
we
ending.
get it. Like every
it.
like blah blah blah. Like Naomi Shapiro from this journalist from Washington Post is writing this. Do we want to be in the office or do we want to be in the home? And should it be mutual? And
meanwhile,
blah blah blah.
Meanwhile, she's like 4'10".
Right, but it's not even that. What I was getting to is like we're sick of everyone talking about the same thing, but what we should be talking about is like these types of questions. Is how is society around work changing from people working remotely constantly and having the video conferencing platforms compared to being in person? And that is like absolutely crazy is how this is changing in that sense.
It is. It's changed everything. It has since the pandemic. It's changed everything.
And
we're
this podcast, we're going to bring up the topics that people aren't thinking deeply enough about.
Think deeply.
But you might, in the back of your mind, be thinking about this and not even realize it.
You might not. And now we're bringing that to the forefront of your mind.
We are. And on that question, that note, we're actually going to wrap this episode up. Because like we've said, we're not trying to make these too long, and we can't thank you enough for listening to wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in, whatever you're making for your meals and your dinners, and we really appreciate it.
We really do, and yeah, like my co-host said, whatever corner of the universe and you are in, we hope you enjoy what you heard here. You can take a lot to the bank and make the most of it.
And just know we're going to have more coming soon, and definitely with some guests. So please stay tuned, and we hope you have a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are.
Take care, guys.